That's how it goes. Welcome back to the Movie Dads podcast. We're your hosts. I'm Howie.
I'm Kyle.
And that's Kyle. This is episode number 8. Today, it's number 8. Why, are you confused?
Math is hard. I thought we were on 7. Was last week 7?
Last week was 7. Last week was number 7.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Episode number 8. What do you mean you haven't seen it?
Classic.
So listen, this episode started as a I swear I've seen this movie, and it turned into a no, I haven't. There's no way. I would have remembered more of it.
Honestly, I can't believe how lucky you are to have got to see that movie for the first time. Again, what I would give for that
initial
feeling.
Yeah,
what's that face for? It's fucking awesome.
You'll see.
You
today
better not.
We won't be friends after today.
You're dead to me.
So today's episode, What Do You Mean You Haven't Seen It, is the 1995 Sylvester Stallone Judge Dredd. I'm not saying classic. I refuse.
Classic.
No.
Oh my God. We're already starting off and I'm angry. We're going to do this whole episode. I'm going to be mad at you because you're wrong. That's the correct answer.
Okay.
Anyways.
Judge Dredd was a big hit anywhere but America. So it was international. It
made money.
It didn't here. It made money overseas.
No one cares about where it is that it makes its money as long as it made money.
You know what else makes a bunch of money? You know what else makes a bunch of money overseas?
Fast
and the Furious.
Oh my God, you're dead to me. How dare you compare this fucking Oscar-nominated classic.
It won several Saturn Awards. It won several Saturn Awards. So today we're going to do the 1995 Stallone film, Judge Dredd, which I hadn't seen before. I thought I had, and I was mistaken, because once we got into it, I was like, I think I've seen bits and pieces, but I've never seen that entire movie all the way through. I knew that for a fact once we got into it. So if you're not familiar with the podcast, normally we do every other week, we do new movie reviews. Then in between we do, what do you mean you haven't seen it? Or you need to see this movie, or maybe just a movie nerd-stalgia kind of throwback movie that we're just kind of dig and we want to talk about. So that's what we do like every other week. And then we always do a 6 to midnight segment where we talk about the things that excite us for the week, kind of movie news and nuggets, maybe video games, maybe toys, things along that line. It was a slower week this week, so not as much as we had last week. And then after we do our movie review, we do our favorite segment, There Can Be Only 5, where we each take a category and we rank our top 5. And we get to discuss only 5. And that segment takes up about half of every episode. So it's our favorite. I think it's the one we get the most comments and content about.
It's
so that's
the most
pretty
controversial.
Exciting. Always. Always. So if you are watching us on YouTube, please give us a like and subscribe. Leave us a comment. Hit the little bell. We'd appreciate that. You can also find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, and Podcast Index. On social media, you can find us at Movie Dads Pod on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. Boy, that's a mouthful.
You could listen outside the window as we shout it, because Howie and I live next door to each other. Mm-hmm. So
absolutely,
you can just listen live. So
yeah. So we're movie dads. We have movie kids. Interesting nugget. We talk about my daughter Reagan a lot. She's a big cinephile, if you will. She's a big movie goer. So school's out. Thanks. School's out for summer. And the first thing Reagan decided she wanted to do was she wants to do an alphabetical list of horror movies she hasn't seen to watch.
She's
So
so weird, but like in the coolest way.
So last night we sat down, and there was a website that just lists horror movies by letters of the alphabet, and we came up with a list. Now I've seen a bunch of them, and I recommended them because they were good movies that she hasn't seen. We started tonight. We just got done watching the Amityville Horror,
Oh, nice.
the remake.
The
We did
new,
not.
yeah.
Yeah, we
I
watched
was
the
like,
remake.
which one?
We watched the
Okay.
remake. We didn't watch the original.
Is that Ryan Reynolds one?
That's
Bearded
correct.
Ryan
Yeah.
Reynolds. Oh,
Yeah. Didn't realize this till we watched it, but it was the first movie Chloe Grace Moretz was ever in. She was like the 6-year-old little girl in the movie, so I thought that was interesting.
Is she the was
Hit
she
Girl?
Peach in
She's
Super Mario? Oh, no.
No, it's
Okay.
Anya Taylor-Joy.
Yeah.
She Hit Girl. But yeah, so we started that. She is by herself now because we're recording. She's watching The Babadook.
Ooh, that
Yeah.
movie was way scarier than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, it's an odd one. It's creepy for sure.
That's like a Netflix one, right?
I think it's on Netflix, but I think it's Australian or New Zealand or
I was going to say
like
they're
that,
like in like England or some other country.
Yeah. But yeah, so that was her first plan. It's a pretty good list, so I'll kind of give little updates as we record because it's going to take all summer to get through that list.
Yeah, I'm interested to hear what she thinks of some of those. So
yeah,
I can't wait till she gets to M. Make sure she watches Mama. Right? Do you ever see Mama?
Is that the one with the creepy girl in the woods or something?
Mm-hmm,
Yeah, okay.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen that either. Actually,
horrifying.
I haven't seen
terrifying. Just skip to M. For me, it is summer. The kids are out. I am super annoyed because every year in the neighborhood, I'm known for the guy that has like the giant speaker. I'm always like playing music outside. And, every year when they're getting off the bus, I've got schools out for summer blasting on the speaker because the school bus drop is right in front of our house, mine and Howie's house. And I didn't realize they got out early, so I totally missed it.
Yeah.
They showed up at home and Grayson just walked in and was like, "What's up, Dad?" It's like, "Oh, shit." So movie-wise, I got Parker, my middle, who's 3.5, and Grayson, we watched Batman Forever the other day. And it's been a long time since I've seen that movie. And I didn't hate it as a kid. I don't remember hating it at all. But obviously, as I've grown older, I've known that it's not like the cool Batman. But it's literally like it's like the in between of. I mean, literally, it is the in between Batman and Robin, George Clooney movie, and Batman Returns. But it is supposed to be like a sequel to Batman Returns, so it doesn't fully go in that campy side, and but there's like some goofiness to it, but still a little bit serious. I liked it. Val Kilmer's a great Batman. He does a really good Bruce Wayne. He's really good about the whole dual mind. Anyways, Parker loved it. Grayson did not care. Jim Carrey kind of freaked out Grayson, so but it was good to jump into that movie. Get some Batman in the house.
I never minded Batman Forever either. I always thought it was a decent movie. I liked it. I think it was very much like Tim Burton's two Batman movies are very, very dark, right? And it's almost like they bridge the gap between that and the Adam West TV show.
Yeah, that's
what I mean.
That's exactly what it felt like.
That's what they were trying to do.
There's so many one lines in this movie that will like my eyes touched my spine. They rolled so hard. Like
yes,
they're in the vault and they get trapped, and the security guard and Batman get trapped in the vault. Liquid starts pouring out of the drawers, and the dude screams, and he's like, "Oh no, it's burning acid!" It's like the worst, like just the worst movie line ever. So I also hate how they opened. Literally, the first line that Batman says, the movie starts, shows him getting ready as Batman, standing in front of this new badass Batmobile. I actually think the Batman Forever Batmobile is fucking awesome. Fucking Alfred like walks up and says like, "Can I get you something to eat, sir?" And he's like, "I'll get drive-through." It's like, God, Batman, you don't say that, but I still like you.
It's all marketing, right? Like
Oh yeah,
those
it
movies
was.
were so about the like McDonald's toys and all that
They got
stuff.
in a
Yeah.
lot of trouble for Batman Returns with McDonald's because they sold it as this kid thing, and then the movie came out and it
It's
was like an
not.
uproar. So I think they were trying to do right by McDonald's. So we're like, listen,
Mhm.
we'll talk about you guys in the opening line.
Yeah.
And
I
I
I
still have the
think
glass mugs
oh nice.
from that
Yeah.
movie.
I think studio interference interfered too much. I think that was what really drove those two 90s
Thanks.
Batman movies down the toilet.
Yeah,
But
it's a bummer. Glad we're getting the new one or the old one back, baby.
can't wait.
Let's go.
2 weeks today. It's good stuff. All right.
All right, let's jump into my most excited segment of the week, 6 to midnight. These are the things that get Howie and I excited for the week, whether that's new trailers that dropped, news of new movies, new video games. Howie mentioned today, new toys, cool stuff like that comes out. I've been chasing the new Batman movie or the new Flash movie that's coming out. They released the '89 Batmobile, and I totally missed it when it first came out. It was like $60 for like the full size, just incredible Batmobile. I missed it, and now it's going online for like $200. I've been trying to chase it, get it at 100. But anyways, I need it to go with my new. I just got this. What Beast something? I forget the name, the brand of it, but the most expensive toy I've ever bought. It's basically like fucking real life Batman, and I need to get the Batmobile to match him. So,
Does he go in the Batmobile?
the ones with he probably wouldn't because I think he's like an inch taller than the 6 inches. Giggity. But the one that came out for the new Flash movie, they made him with like a soft cape so he could
Got it.
sit in the cape. Anyways, we're nerds. I'm a little bit more nerdy than Howie, but that's not my 6 to midnight. My 6 to midnight is new video game trailers and new games that were announced or dropped this week. I'm going to start off with a seminal classic from all of our childhood. Sony had their big kind of event, or PlayStation had their big event, and they dropped a trailer for. It's called Metal Gear Solid Delta, but really it's Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater getting a remake, and the graphics look insane. Did you ever play any of the Metal Gear Solid games?
First one, just the first one.
Oh, first one's so good. Second one was good, but kind of weird because they gave you a different. They tricked you.
Is that Sons of Liberty?
Sons of Liberty, still a good game, but
yeah.
you play as Raiden instead
Yeah.
of. They like the first 2 hours you play as Snake, and then the rest of the game you play as Raiden. But Snake Eater #3 came out, and you're not playing as Solid Snake. You're playing as he ends up becoming known as Big Boss at some point, but he's like the original Snake because Solid Snake in Metal Gear 1 is actually like a clone of this guy. Most people don't know that if you don't pay attention to the millions of hours of video in those games. Anyways, it's set in like the Cold War era. It's all set in like a jungle setting. The game is phenomenal. It was like the first game that introduced like camouflage. You could like customize your camouflage, certain areas that you hide in, like whether you're in mud or grass or bush or tree or whatever it might be. Just an awesome game. The graphics look great. People have been wanting a remake for so long, and they're finally dropping one. So I'm excited about that. And they're not just coming out for PlayStation; it's coming out for the Xbox as well.
Oh, nice.
I'm an Xbox nerd, so they didn't say a release date, but they did say it sounds like 2024. So next year is when we get that. And then my second one, another video game. I thought it was like that they had totally snuck up on everyone and dropped this game out of nowhere. Technically, there was like a mention of it a year ago, but there's been no talk of it, no mention of it. They just did like a short little clip to show people that this game was coming out and they never talked about it. And then like 2 weeks ago, I guess it was like a news release came out that this game was coming out. I didn't see it. A lot of people I know didn't have any idea. And then boom, Star Trek Resurgence. Just you're not a Trekkie. I'm though a Star Wars nerd. I also enjoy Star Trek. My mom is a big Trekkie. We used to do Star Trek marathons when I was a kid. So like I love the Star Trek franchise, but to me it felt like this game just dropped out of nowhere. There was no kind of background to it really. And then boom, we get this new Star Trek game. They dropped a trailer, like an announcement trailer, and then they were like, also, it's available to play right now, so go buy it. And
Nice.
I was supposed to go buy Zelda because you've been blowing me up about it. I skipped going straight to Zelda and I went to Star Trek Resurgence, and I've been nerding out. It is a Trekkie's dream.
Nice.
It's kind of like a Telltale game. A lot of people from the Telltale kind of company have left there and started this new company. Dramatic Labs is what it's called, but it's kind of like a choose your own adventure game. You're making decisions on like conversations, dialogues, stuff like that. But it's more like Heavy Rain, and that there's like some action in it. Like you're actually controlling your character, walking around the ship. It's set out on like the outer reaches of kind of like the known space area. So it just feels like Star Trek. It feels very like Captain James T. Kirk vibes. You are on a small kind of ship called the Resolute. It's like it's like an exploratory science ship that is going to go, and you basically help different like planets and species, new like first contact species, kind of work through political issues and stuff like that, and which is very Star Trek. So,
Right.
anyways, I kicked it on and just thought like, oh, I'll try it out, and I was like hooked. I played many hours of it. So, anyways, Star Trek Resurgence, it is out now. Like I said, it's a Trekkie's dream. If you like Star Trek, if you like Mass Effect, if you like Star Wars, you'll like this game. Jump on it, and you don't need to know anything about Star Trek to do it. So
nice. Good. So I had a couple notes for my 6 to Midnight this week. You mentioned Zelda. So Zelda's been out for 2 weeks now, and I've been playing for 12 days because I was out of town the day it came out. But as much as we talked about Breath of the Wild and how I ranked it as my favorite Zelda game. Breath of the Wild is now number 2. Tears of the Kingdom. Tears of the Kingdom is number 1. It's everything that was great about Breath of the Wild, with so many additional features. The building with all the different parts, and like you can build like mechs, and you can build like airships and hovercrafts, and it's insane all the things you could build. But
I've seen some really crazy stuff online.
Yeah,
of what people are building.
I
saw someone built a Metal Gear, like from Metal Gear games.
Yeah, they're building some crazy stuff. There's some sick individuals out there too that are building some weird stuff, but it's great. Well. I couldn't even tell you how far into the game I am. I absolutely have no idea because there's so much to do. It's over double map size that Breath of the Wild was. There's so much to explore. It's nuts. But I had that down. We got a little news today. Lionsgate had a earnings call yesterday, and I don't know if you saw it, the news came out, but John Wick Chapter 5 is in active development.
I did not see that.
Yeah,
that's the new Fast and the Furious franchise, right?
Well, I'm okay with more John Wick movies. Yeah. Those are freaking great. So that just came out. I don't know anything about it. They're already making Ballerina, which is a spinoff that's going to come out next year. With Ana de Armas is going to be the assassin, and Keanu Reeves is supposed to be in it, in like a cameo role or a small part. And then they're making a series. I don't know if it's on Peacock or Stars, about the Continental and how the inner workings, like a prequel series. And then the head of Lionsgate said they're making at least 2 more movies beyond what they said, and one of them is John Wick Chapter 5. So I think
he just has a lot of fun with that. Like those are the movies that he's like this
Right.
shit is what I want to do. I like running and gunning. Like that's what I do for fun. So
yeah, I mean, I think he has that mindset where I can still do that stuff at my age. I might as well keep doing it, right?
yeah.
So, and then a little bit of casting rumors around Superman Legacy. So those rumors kind of started popping up, and I made some notes. But the biggest rumors came out was that Nicholas Hoult was in the running to be Superman. When his name got tossed around at first, people thought it was for Lex Luthor, but I guess the rumor is he's actually being looked at for Superman, which I don't see it, but I don't have a problem with Nicholas Hoult as an actor. I just don't see him as Superman. Now, some of the other names that were tossed around were mostly people that aren't super familiar. David Corenswet, Jacob Elordi, and Andrew Richardson were the other people that are on the short list for Superman. If you don't know who David Corenswet is, I'm not super familiar with his work, but Kyle, if you get a chance, Google a picture of this guy.
Does he look just like Superman?
He looks just like Henry Cavill, like a younger. He looks just like him.
Gosh, there was a casting rumor for, I can't remember which guy. Oh, maybe it was Cornsweat. He looks like, sorry, I just pulled him up, a la Joe Rogan style. He does look just like a young Henry.
He looks like a young Henry. So, I mean, I
liked that Henry was like, this is Superman. I need to be fucking huge. I'm getting
huge.
jacked.
Yeah.
Like that's how Superman should look. So I feel like they keep casting all these skinny minis for it.
Well, I don't know. Maybe they'll, we'll see. Look at what Hugh Jackman. Look what Hugh Jackman looked like when he did the first X-Men. And then, like, by the time he was doing, like, the Wolverine, like, that dude had, like, 5% body fat.
He's so veiny.
Yeah. But anyway, so those were the casting rumors around Superman. And then the final trailer for The Flash came out, and Andy Muschietti dropped a huge cameo nugget in an interview. Like, huge spoiler. Did you see it? I'm not going to say who it was, but did you see? I was blown away by it because it's one of those things that you've always heard about and never could imagine in your wildest dreams. And then now we're going to get to see it.
I texted you that.
You didn't tell me. You said that. You said I saw some crazy cameo stuff. I stumbled upon who it was, and I was like, "Oh, I wish I wouldn't have seen that."
Well, there's more than one, so
I'm sure. Yeah. I think you know which one I'm talking about, but So that's pretty
which I'm
wild.
excited because that's I won't even say anything.
Yeah,
because it'll give it away.
But we've also talked about the rumblings around how good of a movie The Flash is, and like the early reviews are stellar. So
I'm so fucking excited.
Yeah,
also, the
excited.
new Spider-Man I'm excited about too. I guess.
Oh yeah, that's so. Well, that's going to be our movie next week. We'll touch that at the end of the episode because that's our movie we're reviewing next week. But that's my 6 to midnight for the week. So kind of a trailer and movie news and nugget roundup, and then obviously some video game info as well. So that brings us into our "What do you mean you haven't seen it?" The 1995 cult classic, 8 overseas classic, Judge Dredd.
Anyone born after the year 1990 thinks it's a classic. Anyway,
okay, all right, okay.
Old balls, man. Judge Dredd, Sly, Sylvester Stallone. He brings Judge Dredd to life on screen. I will say this movie could have been a lot better if Sly.
If it was a Judge Dredd movie?
If Sly wasn't involved, because he, behind the scenes, the director and / writer is like a huge Judge Dredd fan, knows the comics, has read all of them. Like, he wanted the serious, like, to be like ripped from the comics, which in the comics, Judge Dredd is super gruesome, super adult, it's super like rated R stuff. And Sly really wanted to, he thought it was an action action comedy, which I mean is pretty common for that day and age. So I guess
Yeah.
so. Like he had them rewrite a bunch of lines, a bunch of scenes. He had them do different stuff that like the director was really upset about because he didn't want to go that way. But that Sly was Sly. Um, so it could have been a lot better. I love this movie. I loved this movie as a kid. Um, I think for me, like I wish, I mean, kind of what you said, like you wish it was a Judge Dredd movie.
Yep.
He's in his Judge Dredd costume for like the first 20 minutes, not even, yeah, probably 15 to 10 minutes. Like the opening scene is like fucking badass. He
Here's
is a badass.
this is one of the biggest beefs with this movie, and I think this is one of the biggest beefs of this movie when it came out. Judge Dredd, beyond anything, as a comic book character, is known most for always wearing the helmet and being
Never takes it off.
Never takes it off.
Never takes it off.
He never wears the helmet in the movie except for at the very beginning.
At the very beginning, and I think he puts it on right at the very end.
Yeah.
And I loved like his Judge Dredd costume. Like I actually like his version better than Carl Urban's version because his Slides looks like straight from the comic. Like he's jacked, like silhouette, like just looks just like him. Kind of fun fact, and I think I mentioned this to you when we were watching the movie, but like this movie was like one of the last things that like Versace did before he passed was did all of the costuming for this movie. So like it designed all this stuff. So like Judge Dredd in 96 or 95, whenever this came out, he's in 95. Straight Versace, homie. So I mean, like you said, like the first, if they would have done, and I said this when we were watching it, the opening scene opens up with Rob Schneider like riding through. He just got out of jail. I know you roll your eyes at Rob Schneider, but like I love Rob Schneider. I thought at the time he was funny. At the time he was funny. He hadn't got old yet. What?
Okay. Now I just think of
I know you're holding back. You're holding back so much.
All the comedic actors they could have gotten in the mid-90s.
They wanted so this whole movie is interesting in terms of like casting because
it has a huge cast. It's massive. Like it's got tons of people in it.
But it was supposed to have, they originally wanted Joe Pesci for Rob Schneider's role, and Joe Pesci passed up on it.
Joe would have saved the movie. No, I don't think he could have saved the movie, but it would have been better.
The other thing is, if I remember right, and I might be wrong, but I'm like 99% sure this is right. The movie was originally meant for Arnold, and then Sly ended up taking it without reading the script, without knowing anything about who Judge Dredd or the character was, but got into it. Which I feel like every time we talk about their movies, one or the other was supposed to do it, and then the other one did.
Well, they were the two biggest like action stars of the late 80s, early 90s. I mean, that was. I don't know. Yeah.
You know my love for Blade Runner and stuff like that. So like this opening scene is Rob Schneider. He just got out of Aspen Penal Penitentiary, which is basically the prison in Aspen. Flying through Mega City 1. Mega City 1 literally like is ripped directly from like Blade Runner. Looks just like Blade Runner City. A little bit like I think you mentioned, it looks like
Super Mario Brothers
Kingdom from the original Super Mario Kingdom, but I wouldn't say it looked that bad. But like I thought it was super cool. They set it up of like kind of give you like an idea of what the city looks like, that cyberpunk kind of vibes, and then it opens up and like there's a turf war going on in one of these mega blocks, as it's called. Mega block is like a giant apartment complex building. And it starts with two judges. This is way in the future for those of you who don't know who or what Judge Dredd is. In the future, it's basically like post-apocalyptic world. So all of the world's population has left most of like the country into these mega cities. So like within like the size city of New York, there's like a billion people or something crazy like that. They actually say a number in the movie, but
Yeah.
it gets so basically it's so there's so much people in such a small area. They don't have enough people and like legislation to run like a normal police where you're arresting people, then they go to jail, then they go to court, all that stuff. So in this time period, this police force has been created called like the judges. You're a judge. And essentially you are the judge, the jury, and the executioner. So like they're out fighting the battles, they're judging them right then on like whatever law they've broken, and then they like execute whatever the punishment is, whether it's sending them to jail or literally executing them. Anyways, movie opens up, badass block war. These two judges, Hershey and this rookie, they're like pinned down, they're getting shot, they're super scared. And then who rides in on his motorcycle? Old Versace wearing slide Judge Dredd with the jawline that could cut diamonds. This man walks up. He slowly gets off his motorcycle, walks out in the middle of the road as bullets are flying by, looks down at Judge Hershey and basically like quotes like what type of rifle ammo they're using and how it's out of range. So like kind of shows like he knows a little bit what he's talking about. And he's like, they're out of range with what they're shooting. This can't hurt you. Why are you hiding down there, Judge Hershey? And then he busts out his badass little Judge Dredd helmet. This little microphone comes out and he just starts opening line like, I am the law. And then just starts yelling to these thugs that Judge Dredd is there. And they all start freaking out. They're like, oh my God, that's Judge Dredd, man. We're going to die. Like, he is fucking cool as hell. He was cool. You can't say this movie might have been bad, but man, that opening scene, he's a fucking badass. Then he tends to lead the other two judges into the apartment complex where he starts mowing them down with the Lawgiver 2, which is super cool comic book movie video game weapon. It's basically the judge's pistol, but it can shoot like whatever rounds they want. They can say like, semi-auto, flare, and it'll shoot whatever they say.
I always wondered watching this movie, like, how did the gun understand what Stallone was saying? Like, I mean,
because he talks like he has a frog in his throat. Or
Amazon Alexa can barely understand the shit I say. So how the hell is grenade? Like it's like, oh, grenades, okay.
Double whammy. Like some of the things are goofy, but like when I was a kid, this was like just like fucking cool. So he goes in, he starts mowing dudes down. He's handing out like he's judging them left and right, saying what law they broke and then kills them, all this stuff. That scene to me, like, even though that's the first 10 minutes, that scene is what makes the whole movie great. Like,
so if the whole movie was more of that,
then yes, then
it's
it would
a
have
different
been
movie.
Fucking amazing. It would have been amazing. Problem is, it's not that. He ends up basically not being in costume for the entire thing.
There's this big convoluted plot. Basically, he gets framed for murder, right? He like kills a reporter. It's not him. It's actually his clone brother.
Yeah,
they're clones.
They are.
Clone brother Rico stands in as Dredd. They have like the lamest bit of evidence they could possibly have.
What, that it looks just like him, and that
he's in his costume. I don't know.
Well, first of all, they're clone brothers, so they
same DNA, right?
Look somewhat similar, especially with helmet on.
Yeah.
Chin, nose down, they look similar. But they're the same DNA. And the guns that they use, the Lawgiver, it reads their DNA of their palm when you hold it, which actually I think is kind of cool in that they're booby traps. So like if someone drops a gun, which at some point I think the rookie does early on, and someone tries to grab his Lawgiver, and one of the other thugs is like, no, and then it like shocks him and kills him.
Yeah.
Because they're booby trapped. I thought that was cool. And then so Rico, his brother, which you don't know he's his brother at first. He's just this guy in jail, breaks out of prison. He's like futuristic Hannibal Lecter in prison. He's got his own separate cell, etc. Breaks out, intends to go and sets up Judge Dredd. So it's very clear that Judge Dredd is like he's like famous, like everybody knows who he is. Everyone's afraid of him. He's a legend. They talk about like amongst all the other judges. And so like just I didn't think the plot was like convoluted. I thought it was kind of cool. Like, okay, he's got a brother, a clone that they set him up.
I mean, there's
to get
like,
him off the street.
Well, yeah, it's basically like Stallone's framed so that the head judge, right, like the master, whatever his name is, he has to leave, so then this other guy can come into power, who's actually the one that like is behind everything, and it's all, and then the part that I think is convoluted is like, so there's all this political stuff, so this guy can take control of the judges, and then they end up killing all the other judges so that they can basically make like a clone army. That I mean, that there's a lot.
It's a little convoluted.
That's what I'm talking about.
Star Wars did it too, and I don't have a problem with how Star Wars went into the clone army world. So
no,
Judge Dredd did it first.
I have some thoughts on that too. You know, I told you, like, this is jumping back into. We talked about Dez and me watching Phantom Menace. We watched the original prequel trilogy. We watched it all last week. There's so much going on political wise in those original movies that, like, every time I watch them, it's wild. And then that's what I mean by it's convoluted. There's just a lot going on, and I just feel like when people watch this movie, like Judge Dredd, they just want a movie where Judge Dredd has to go and
be Judge
Dredd, right? Like, I mean, and that's why I think the reboot with Carl Urban was so great. Like, it's, you got to go here and do this.
They literally took the opening scene of this movie,
yes,
of there being a mega block war, and made the whole, literally what we just said, what we wish this movie was. We wish it was that opening scene of the mega block war of Judge Dredd being a badass. We wish the whole movie was that. That's why Carl Urban / the director and writer that did that movie did so well, because they've seen this movie. Not that they're like, let's do this, but they're like, they know that part was cool. It clearly was badass. So then let's just do a whole movie where we do that. And I mean, not that the new Dredd was really like a big hit success commercially or anything like that, but
it was critically.
But like, yeah, so like we love it and we want more of it. Like, I wish they would have done a whole movie like that with Stallone. I think he could have been okay with it. I just, he's walking around the whole time. He's like, law, I am the law. Like, I love that. I think he's badass. So, yeah. So, I mean, the movie, it gets kind of zany towards the end. It gets all over the place. It turns into Rob Schneider and Stallone they're like buddies. Obviously, we said Judge Dredd gets framed. He goes to jail. At the very beginning of the movie, right when Rob Schneider has just gotten out of jail, he ends up at this block war where he's trying to get into his apartment and runs into Judge Dredd, and Judge Dredd basically judges him and sentences him to like 4 or 5 years back in jail. And so then when he gets set up, they end up going to jail together.
Yeah.
And it's like this, like, oh my God, you sent me here. Now you're in jail too. Look at you. And
you deserve this.
Yeah. Yeah. But then they team up and like, there's I forget what specific scene it is, but like Rob Schneider's like, they're getting yelled at and Stallone looks over at Rob Schneider's like, what, are you crying? And like, as he says it, he like wipes the tear off of Rob Schneider's face. Are you crying? And then Rob Schneider grabs it from his finger. No.
That's right.
Good.
That's the part with the cannibals. That's right. Yep, when they're,
So they go on the run. They're trying to get back into Mega City 1. They run into some cannibals, which at that point was where They brought in a comic book villain. And of course, as we're on a podcast talking about this, I can't think of his name off the top of my head. It's like not Megadeth or something like that, but it's basically this half human, half robot. He's got one giant robot arm with like a hook at the end, and then missing his other arm, with this giant like volume knob on his forehead that can be turned to basically set his aggressive level. But in the comic
Mean
books,
Machine.
Mean Machine, that's what it is. Why did I say Death Machine?
It's something like that.
So Mean Machine is like one of, he's not like Judge Dredd's like main villains in the comics, but he's one of his like rogues galleries. So thought that was cool they had it in it. I wish it would have been Judge Dredd and Judge Dredd attire in that battle. But they meet these crazy hillbilly Hills Have Eyes cannibals. They break out. They end up getting back into the city. And then Judge Dredd does what Judge Dredd does and takes out everybody. And the day is saved at the end. So again, as you hear me talk about this movie, I clearly have nostalgia goggles on the whole time. Going back, it's a movie. I mean, I don't watch it every year. It's probably a couple of years between every time I watch it. But every time I do, I literally am like, I freaking love that movie no matter what. I could watch the opening scene of that movie a million times and be fine. But looking at now, like knowing just a lot of the backstory to the movie, knowing kind of Stallone as like an actor. I mean, we don't go to watch Stallone or Arnold movies like for the acting. So like, I don't want to really hold that against him. I'll hold it against him that he changed some things in the movie that should have been more Judge Dreddy. But I give it a 7.5 or an 8 in terms of like, that's my now rating. Back in the day, this was a 10. As a kid, this was a total fucking 10 across the board. Give me Judge Dredd I was 5 when the movie dropped, but I watched it a lot, like between that and growing up. So I love this movie. You didn't see it when you were at that time, so you aren't able to see it with those nostalgia goggles.
You're right.
Okay, tell me.
Okay.
tell me everything.
All right, let's go.
Just destroy me.
Today I'm going to destroy this movie. So you're right. It starts off very promising. The opening scene's really good. Then it fails from that moment on. Okay. You like Stallone a lot better than I do. Okay. I've gotten crap because I didn't rate Stallone in my best action stars of the growing up. Remember, I got some crap for that.
Yeah, you've replaced him with Steven Seagal.
Yeah, I stand by that 100%. Listen.
Jesus Christ.
Sylvester Stallone made some good action movies. Mm-hmm. When we get to our There Can Be Only 5, I think we're going to see that the majority of the great movies that Stallone made, he played the same character. Rocky Balboa. I love the Rocky movies. I think Stallone's great as Rocky. Well, I love that character. I think it's great. Beyond that, I think Stallone made some really crappy movies. Does he have some good movies? Absolutely. Do I dislike Stallone? No. This was not good. The way he acted.
I went and looked at the list of all of his movies and actually kind of I was kind of taken aback of like, really, those are them, huh?
Yep.
I thought I remember there being
more movies. Yeah.
Some better quality movies in there.
The cast is amazing, right? Like we got Sylvester Stallone, Diane Lane's Hershey. Max von Sydow plays the Chief Justice, right? Jürgen Prochnow is the bad Chief Justice guy, right? Like he was the main bad guy in like Beverly Hills Cop 2. He was in like Das Boot. He's in a bunch of like 90s movies.
Yeah. He's the main bad guy in Beer
Fest. Yeah.
Beer Fest. He's the granddad.
It's the same guy. Armand DeSante plays Rico. He's a great villain. He's awesome in the movie.
What other movies is he in?
Man, he did like
I like him a lot as a bad guy.
he was he played John Gotti in like a John Gotti movie in the 90s, and then there was a mini series, and I want to say it was on like ABC or NBC or something about the Odyssey. And he was
Yeah,
he was he was Odysseus,
yeah.
and that was
Fuck.
great. That was a great mini series.
That's where I recognize him
Yeah,
from. I remember that.
that's probably where most people recognize him. The
Damn.
cast is fantastic. Other than Rob Schneider, I'm not a big Rob Schneider fan. Listen, I think Deuce Bichelow's funny. Like he's, his little part. That's the only movie I think I've ever liked him where he's in a big role, and I'm like, oh, Rob Schneider's hilarious.
I don't think there's any other movies where he's the main character.
No, there's probably
not. Oh,
not.
yeah? Are you kidding me? Benchwarmers?
Okay, that's a funny movie, but
it's a great movie.
I like Nick Swardson a lot better than I like Rob Schneider, though. But okay, so the writing is pretty bad. The dialogue's bad. The storyline's bad. The decisions that were made in this movie were pretty bad, right? Like we've established a lot of that. I get it. You like this movie. I'm not trying to hurt your feelings.
You're not hurting my feelings. That's what we're here for. We're here to disagree.
We usually don't disagree by that much, though. And I just feel like there's so many things that could have done better. Danny Cannon was the director. One of the writers of this movie was Steven D'Souza, who wrote Street Fighter.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we've talked about that guy before. He also directed Street Fighter. I gave Street Fighter a 4. I did not love Street Fighter. Street Fighter's a better movie than this one.
Shut up! Get out! Leave your house!
See, right Street Fighter. Raul Julia made Street Fighter a better movie than this one.
This is coming from the guy who literally made you watch that movie because you've never seen it, and I love Street Fighter.
Yeah,
man.
But like Danny Cannon came out and he's like, yeah, the writing was. Sylvester Stallone even did interviews where he was like, Danny Cannon was crazy, and he was, like he had problems. Like he stood up and he said, "You will all fear me." He even makes fun of the guy's height. He's like, he hopped down from his little director's chair and was like, "You will all fear me," and then hopped back up. That was a quote.
I've heard that. I have heard that.
You can tell. You can tell there's problems with the production when the director's mad at the actor and the writer's mad at the director and the actor and the actor's blaming everybody, right? Like that's, it's, there's problems with the movie. This movie was about $90 million in the mid 90s. Keep in mind, the reboot was $40 million. That was the budget. Okay. So yeah, the costumes are a lot better because they paid Versace to make them, right? And they're comic accurate. The set design, it's all, I get it. This movie,
Versace, that's the 20 million.
Wild. That's probably, it was probably Stallone got the most money. Versace got the second most. That's my guess when it came to this.
And whoever did the motorcycles.
Yeah. Oh yeah. The motorcycles. The movie made $34 million domestically. It was a flop, but it made about $80 million overseas.
Because people love them some Sly.
That might be it. That might be it. It's got cool effects, especially for 1995.
Which I think was what was the only thing critically that people thought was good was the effects. Watching
this movie, the whole time in my head, I'm comparing it to Demolition Man, right? Because it's like Stallone's this lone cop hero. And it's in the future, and there's all these different things with society and whatnot. And they're two totally different movies, but I think Demolition Man's a lot better. I think it's a lot better movie. Overall, you got a better everything. Got a better supporting cast. I think Wesley Snipes was an awesome villain in that. Like a lot of good things about it. This one,
we've got only 5 later that I'll dive into that.
Yeah, a lot of things that just went wrong with it. Listen, if I watched this as a kid, I mean, I'd probably give this like a 7. I probably would as a kid because, like you said, it's cool. The design's cool. The guns are cool. All that's cool. Man, watching it now, it's a 3.
Yeah,
it's a 3 out of 10. Like,
what if I just showed you the opening 10 minutes and then we stopped watching?
I would have had a lot of promise. I would have been like, oh, this isn't that bad. It's a 3 out of 10. I mean, I think I gave Super Mario Brothers a 2. And
this is much more interesting and fun of a movie to watch than Super Mario original.
the only thing I would say about those two movies is I felt like the lead actors in Super Mario Brothers were better.
Oh, the Super Mario was a way more boring of a movie than this.
Yeah, that's fair. But again, I didn't think Stallone did a good job.
Yeah,
He's
it doesn't work.
he's too cheesy sometimes, and
He's
he's
very
so
cheesy.
bad.
Doesn't work when you don't know the character at
Yeah.
all. I think
Well,
he got a little bit
yeah.
of kind of the Judge Dredd, like the whole like understanding, like I am the law, like I'm the fucking the head cheese, like
Yeah.
that's Judge Dredd.
Is Go ahead.
Judge Dredd is the character itself. He's not Batman. He's not Superman. He's
Right.
from a niche comic book
Yep.
publisher,
Yep.
like 10,000 AD or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So like it's not, which is why I think was a big reason why it didn't do well in the theater at the time, because nobody really knew it was like a really cult kind of following in terms of like
Yeah.
the comic book line.
That's
I
probably
think
why they changed so much too.
for sure. And I think the reason why I liked the movie so much, at least the character, I can't remember how I got like shown Judge Dredd or how that character somehow became it was like that was a character I really liked. He had a motorcycle, like his fucking uniform and helmet looked cool.
Mm-hmm.
Like I had a toy of him that actually had the motorcycle. And so then when the movie came out, it was just like, oh, I fucking love Judge Dredd. I can't believe they're making a movie. This is dope. So that's, I think, why I went into that movie with kind of the same mindset as like, what movie were we talking about? Where it's like like we we're talking about the new Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, for me, I'm like, any show with this character is like, I'm happy to have it because like, I
get
just
that.
want to see more content of them. So,
Yep.
Movie's horrible in terms of acting, writing.
You love
Terrible.
it. Don't lie.
I love it though. I fucking love this movie.
Yeah.
You have to see this movie if you haven't seen it. You have to see the first 10 minutes of this movie.
Yes, and then you can turn it off.
Then you can turn on Carl Urban's and pretend it's Sly.
You're sitting on the toilet. Go ahead and pull up the beginning and watch it. And then you're done. You're good.
Okay, let's jump into our next segment, just because this is gonna be the longest episode of all time.
I don't know.
Keep going. So
yeah, jump into There Can Be Only Five.
Only five. It's our only five.
It's our only five.
Am I taking it? Or you taking it?
It's your movie. Judge Dredd is your movie, so you get to go first.
Okay, let's jump into. This is we do top 5 lists every episode. These are a ton of fun. At some point, Howie will start posting these separately. So for those of you who don't care to listen to the other hour and a half of our conversation, you can hear these lists and disagree with us. So we've had some good banter with some strangers on these top 5s. I have just really enjoyed watching you get roasted by someone about Thanos.
I don't care
about Thanos not being the greatest, about not being the greatest movie villain ever or whatever. I can't remember what it was. But what I really enjoyed about that banter was that at first it started of that guy basically trying to shitpost, and then it turned into like intellectual dialogue, like a high level competitive conversation where at the end everyone was like, I appreciate you and I'm going to pay attention and listen to this. And so I understand where you come from. So I like it. I like where we get some hot takes from this. Both of the lists that we did today, one of them maybe wasn't really hard, but the other one, I kept going through and was like, did we already talk about? I feel like we've already talked about a lot of these movies, or we've already done a similar list. But we'll jump into that. Let's jump into mine. We're doing top 5 Stallone movies, and just to stay on point with seeing Judge Dredd. We did Guardians of the Galaxy the other week, which Stallone is in, and so we decided top 5 Stallone movies that are not Rocky. So none of the Rocky movies can be in this, which, I mean, if I were him, I'd be pretty peeved to hear like you're doing my top movies and you're not even going to allow the franchise that's my best franchise. But we already know that would be, those movies would all be the top 5.
Honest question. Like if we did top 5 Stallone movies, how many are going to be Rockies? 4? Maybe 3.
Number 4, number 3, in terms of Rocky 4, Rocky 3, maybe Rocky 2. Maybe
the original won Best Picture at the Oscars.
I like the original, but I like Clubber Lang better, and I like.
It just depends. Like they evolve. Man, it's a great film series because the way it evolved.
Is one movie. Yeah,
I feel like 1 and 2 is like the same movie with a different result.
It's literally exactly what it is. So, anyways, so let's jump into this. Our top 5 Stallone movies that are not Rocky. This was such a weird list going through his movies and trying to pick like what. I think we've talked about most of these at some point or some of them. I'm going to give my honorable mentions first because I think they deserve shout outs. First honorable mention, Rambo 2008, when they kind of did the way late sequel remake. I loved that movie. I thought it was like bringing this old classic 90s, 80s style action movies and doing like a modern take with modern effects. And it was freaking awesome. He literally uses a 50 cal machine gun from like point blank range to like slice a man in half. That was awesome. Yeah. And then Ants. Ants is the adult version of A Bug's Life.
Yes,
if you have not seen the movie Ants, you have to watch it. It is so good. I love that movie. I didn't feel like it could be on the top 5 because he's not the main character. He's like a side character.
Yep.
I mean, he's like the best friend of the main character. So I just didn't feel like that could be in this, but I did want to mention it because
That's good.
I love the movie Ants. Now I want to go watch it. Number 5, this movie, I don't know why, but I just think it's freaking cool. Get Carter. I don't know if you saw Get Carter.
But, I think I own it. Yeah. That's a remake.
So Mickey Rourke is in it. Michael Caine is in it.
Yeah, Michael Caine was the original main character. He was the original guy.
Oh, I did not know that. I didn't seen the original. So that's kind of cool that he would be in this.
Yeah.
So like the actors that were in it are cool. I actually love Mickey Rourke.
Yeah.
It's just super cool. He's not like the mob enforcer. I guess that's his technical like term is basically like if someone makes a deal with the mob and they don't take care of their business, they go get Carter and he takes care of them. And then it turns into this big conspiracy story of his brother dies. And then he basically is going on this mission to find out like who killed him and why. And then it flips his whole world upside down. But anyways, Get Carter, super cool movie. Loved it. Here we go. Now we're jumping into my nostalgia childhood. This movie, I don't know why I love it, but I freaking love this movie. Over the Top.
Oh, yeah. I was hoping you'd have it on there.
I freaking love Over the Top. And if you don't know Over the Top and you're watching the video version and not the listening on the podcast, this arm wrestling thing we're doing, it's literally a movie about Sly being a competitive arm wrestler. He's a truck driver. He's got a son, which I don't think it's the same kid from the Rocky movies, but for whatever reason, when I was a kid, I felt like it was just the same actor. The same kid was playing his kid as Stallone is this like badass truck driver who it's like Rocky if Rocky was for competitive arm wrestling. So the music is classic. It's fantastic. It definitely is not a good movie, but it is awesome from my childhood. So
it's a great movie.
Over the Top. My mom got me, I don't know why, but she got me like the Blu-ray of it. So I've got that bad boy. It's still sealed though.
So we don't know what it's on each other's lists, and him and I both did the hand thing at the same time. Like, yes.
Yeah. I don't know how you knew that's where I was going. My number 3, this one, I think we've either talked about it on the pod or we've talked about it between episodes. You hated this movie, or maybe you never even saw it, but you said it looked stupid and not interesting to you. I don't know why in our household we watch this movie a lot. Stop or my mom will shoot.
I've seen it. It's
This fucking movie is so funny. Stallone is hilarious when he wants to be.
We talked
And
about it
this
on the
movie-
pod. We talked about it on the pod because this was the movie that Arnold purposely said no to,
Yes, okay,
but told
okay.
his agents to like tell Sly's agents that, oh, he really is interested.
Oh man, what a classic with freaking one of the Golden Girls. I don't
Estelle
remember
Getty.
which one.
It was Estelle Getty.
She plays Stallone's mom who's visiting him. He's this like he's the same character that he's in. He's basically Judge Dredd in this. He's like the number one cop who's like just like a total manly man, and then who's a bachelor. And then his mom comes to live with him for like a couple of weeks and just like ruins his life. So she washes his gun. Like that was the like I never knew anything about like gun having like patina and stuff. I learned it from this movie. She washes his gun and it's like chrome and clean, and he's like yelling at his mom like, "What did you do to my gun?" Just a fucking classic. We should watch that.
No, we shouldn't.
These top 2 were hard for me, and we already know what the answers are, but I had flip-flopped them twice. My number 2 movie, this pained me to not have it number 1, Judge Dredd. Judge Dredd is my number 2 Stallone movie outside of Rocky. I love that movie, as you know from this entire podcast. I'm not going to jump in. I think it's a great Stallone movie. He's a badass Judge Dredd. It's not his fault. Well, technically it is his fault, but it's not his fault that he wasn't in his costume the whole time. And my number 1 movie, which I saw in your eyes, you realized what franchise or movies I didn't have in this list.
Yeah.
Because I don't think they're at top 5. Hit number 1, Demolition Man. What a fucking movie.
This is an awesome
Demolition
movie.
Man is badass. Wesley Snipes plays this kooky, zany, crazy bad guy.
He's like Antonio Brown that knows capoeira.
Oh my God.
That's who it is.
That is a great comparison. It's the concept of Demolition Man is so fucking cool. So Wesley Snipes is this like repeat offender, like megalomaniac. I can't even say the word right. What am I? Megalomaniacal? What am I saying? Anyways,
I know what you're talking
about. He's like a super villain.
Megalomaniac.
That's megalomaniac.
Yeah.
Like it's been a long week.
That's a lot.
Anyways, he is like a supervillain in like the 80s or 90s, and Stallone is like the top cop who chases him and is like constantly going after him. It's like Batman and Robin, or Batman and Joker, like they're constantly going. Wesley Snipes gets like cryo frozen, or they capture him and put him in jail and they cryo freeze him. I don't know why they did that.
So at the beginning, there's like they had the big action scene where like Wesley Snipes is in this building and Stallone's like, I'm going in to get him. And everybody's like, no, we got to get everybody out safely first. And Stallone like ends up blowing up the building and a whole bunch of innocent people die. So they both go to prison.
Oh yeah. So they both, I thought I remember that they had froze him because they froze Wesley, they froze him. But you're right. I forgot that all those people died. So they both get cryo frozen, and then Wesley Snipes, somebody thaws him out, like the main bad guys or the main people pulling the strings. They thaw him out so that he can run amok in this futuristic city. And the only way that they can stop him is they have to thaw out the Demolition Man. Right. And they call him that because, like you said, he blows up this building. He's like constantly costing, the force a lot of money because he doesn't care. He just will do anything, any means necessary to get the bad guy. But it's awesome. It's set in like this futuristic kind of LA. Every fancy restaurant is Taco Bell. Sandra Bullock is just an awesome love interest slash
like
sidekick to him.
Mm-hmm.
The 3 seashells that are in the bathroom, which they never explain. Cool thing in the video game Cyberpunk 2077, they have 3 seashells in the bathrooms.
Oh, that's funny.
Just as kind of a nod to that movie. Yeah, I don't know why, but I just love that movie. Anytime I hear of it, it makes me think of like not Hard Rock Cafe, the Planet Hollywood restaurants, because I grew up in California and those were everywhere out there, but they would always have the Stallone like in the cryo freeze like thing, just like frozen over the top of the restaurant. And anyways, yeah, it's my top 5 Stallone, not Rocky movies.
So we have, we only have 2 on the list.
Fascinating.
It's fascinating because of how many movies there really are on this. There's some movies Stallone did that where he's like a part of a ensemble and stuff that were really good, especially when he was younger. That I can't remember what it was called. Is it Victory? The one where he's like they're in prison and they got to play like the soccer game. That's a really good. That's a really good movie. But I didn't have that on the list.
There were a couple I didn't do, like Guardians of the Galaxy. It's like obviously it's a great movie, but that's not a Stallone movie. He's just in it.
Yeah, and he's not in it very much. So my honorable mention, I did throw one on there. I don't usually do the honorable mentions, but I threw one on there. It was the Rambo 2008 was my honorable mention.
Nice. We both had that as an honorable. Does that count as an extra one?
Yeah, it's almost like a bonus pick because it's like it's not a super great movie, but it's a lot of fun to watch because it's so excessively violent. You know, and it's kind of like the return to the character kind of deal, which is neat. Number 5, I had Over the Top. Number 5, which is I love that movie. You really went into it. It's super like cheesy, like he's trying to get his son, but like the grandpa like wants to get the kid and he's like chasing after him, and it's the competitive arm wrestling's part of the main plot too, but it's an awesome movie.
Rocky with arm wrestling.
It kind of is. It's a good movie though. It's probably not viewed as a great movie, but I enjoy it. I think it's pretty good. Number 4, I had Cliffhanger at number 4, which I think is another one of those like just kind of gets lost in the 90s action movies. I just thought it was kind of cool because it had a different setting. I think Stallone's he's like a climbing instructor / like rescue guy in the mountains, and there's terrorists. I can't remember exactly what the plot point is. I think John Lithgow is like the main bad guy, and he's awesome. John Lithgow, he chews scenery like it's nothing. He's he's dialogue. He's just so he's so good as a bad guy. It's awesome.
It was hard for me not to have that on the list.
Yeah,
that was one that I was like, this is everybody knows this. It's a great movie.
Yeah, it's a good movie. They're making a sequel.
Ace Ventura 2. What?
They just announced that within the last few weeks. They're making a sequel to Cliffhanger. Yeah.
They got to do that same scene where
he's hanging up.
I only really remember that movie because of the cable going across. He's hanging upside down, and
it's a good movie.
Ace Ventura 2 reenacts the entire scene with the raccoon, lets him go. It's not.
But Cliffhanger, it's a cool 90s action movie because it's like a different setting. It's not your typical
it's Under Siege mountain climbing.
Yeah,
style.
Die Hard on a Mountain. That's what it is. Number 3, I had Demolition Man. All the things
number 3.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Get out of here.
Man, my top 2 are. I wonder if you've ever.
They're gonna be.
I wonder if you've ever seen number 1. We'll see. Demolition Man's number 3. All the things you talked about, it's great. Like, the story's kind of goofy where they thaw him out. Basically, like the guy that runs everything now in this peaceful futuristic world thaws out like this super villain because he has like there's an underground group of people that are like they're stealing and stuff. And so basically he thaws out this guy because there's basically people committing misdemeanors in his perfect society. So he thaws out the worst possible person to like eliminate them. And then that guy's like, everybody's a pussy. I'm going to take over. It's basically what it is. And then they have to get Stallone out. Number 2, I have First Blood, the original John Rambo movie. So First Blood was based on a book. It's totally different tone than everything else that Rambo was. Talk about a spinoff that completely left the like original story behind.
Yes.
Basically, Stallone's like a Vietnam vet, and he's like a transient. He's like traveling through the country, and he gets into a small town. I think it's in Colorado or it's in the mountains, something like that. I don't. Basically, like, they don't like transients. They don't want him there. He doesn't go quietly, and he ends up fighting the entire police force. And then they got to bring other people. It's a great movie. It's not like it's not a pure really, action movie.
It's a lot about like mental health after war and PTSD and stuff like that.
So. Yeah, a lot of dialogue too. There's a lot about it in the story too, kind of about how these vets were viewed coming out of Vietnam because the war was so hated, and like the people that went and fought in it, even though a lot of them didn't have the choice, were viewed coming back. They're like, oh, you're one of them kind of deal. So it really is a good movie. Brian Denny, he's like the town sheriff, and he's a really great bad guy in that too. And it's almost like he's not a bad guy. He's just kind of like this. He's kind of just an asshole, I mean, like, his character's just an asshole, and he goes too far, and Stallone's like not going to put up with it. And, obviously that evolved into this huge action franchise with John Rambo. But First Blood's a great movie. My number 1 Sylvester Stallone movie, and it's like the movie the most where he kind of got out of character, is the 1997 James Mangold directed and written Copland.
Oh, yeah. I know Copland.
Okay. So
I know Copland, the tan unis.
Yeah. So Copland is a very low budget. It was a $15 million movie made in 1997. The big thing about this when it came out was it was one of those like things where this famous action star like changes the kind of movie he's going to do. It's more of a dramatic role, right? It's about a small town in New Jersey that's like across the river from New York City. And Stallone's like the kind of, he kind of get the vibe like he's this dim-witted, he's overweight, like he puts on a bunch, he's got to put on a bunch of weight for this role, town sheriff. And there's all these like crooked cops from like New York that like live in the town, and it's like that's where they all live, and they do all their behind the scenes kind of corruption stuff. And he kind of just turns away, and then he kind of has to deal with it eventually, and it's basically him versus all these corrupt cops. And
I remember like distinctly when they shoot the gun by his head, and then they like
blows his eardrum, and he can't hear. And they do a really good job in the movie too of like they where the whole screen is silent, and it's like he can't hear, and he kind of gives you that kind of sense. He came out, he like totally different movie role for him. I mean, obviously he could do dramatics, like we've seen it in Rocky, like he was nominated for Oscar for Rocky and everything like that. Just it's felt like it was totally out of role because he'd already become this like big action star. He's making movies like Tango and Cash and Cliffhanger and Demolition Man and Judge Dredd, and he comes out and he makes the movie Copland, and it's a great movie. Like it's a good movie. And
I'm shocked.
He's the best part. He's the best part of that movie, and he's like up against like Robert De Niro, Harvey Keitel. Like these are the cops in this movie, and Stallone's the best part of the movie. And it blows me away that he was able to take on that role and do such a great job.
Yeah, it's a great movie. When I was going through his list of total movies, that was one that was like, that was one of his best like acting roles. But for me, like like that or Get Carter are like interchangeable, I would say. For me, not like in terms of like his acting prowess. But I'm shocked you didn't have Expendables on here. Like for sure you were going to be like Expendables 1 and 2, number 1 and 2.
those movies, they are what they are. I mean, we all know what they are. They like it's like an all-star action movie. Basically it's and they're
Like,
cool
we
movies.
can finally do a movie to get Arnold and me in the
Yeah.
same. When Expendables 1 came out, it was like a big deal
Yeah.
because it was like Arnold and Sly.
And then is it the second one? Is it the second one? And then they got like Jean-Claude Van Damme's the bad guy in one of them. Isn't Mel Gibson the bad guy in one of them? Like, it's
Mel Gibson.
Yeah.
Dolph
Lundgren's in the freaking movie.
Yeah, like basically
it's great.
every action star ever. Jason Statham.
Yeah, a lot of them. Yeah, I think Sylvester Stallone and Jason Statham are like the two main characters in those movies. Like, I don't dislike those movies. I think they're good. They are what they are, right? Like, I don't see the Expendables franchise as like classics, like Demolition Man, right?
I thought for sure you were going to have them in your list. I thought when you were like, oh, you don't have this in your top 5, like, how do you not have Expendables?
First Blood
is all I'm saying.
First Blood was the one I was surprised you didn't have on there. Like, God, the original.
I almost kind of threw Rambo. I mean, obviously I did an honorable mention of them.
Yeah.
But I almost looked at the Rambo movies kind of like the Rockies. It's like, I don't want to put these in because it's a big franchise. And first one was way different than what the character is. Like, he's kind of the bad guy in the first one. Like,
it's kind of who is the bad guy kind of deal. Like, because he's this vet and he's got PTSD and he's got mental issues and all that
but
stuff.
He's still killing people. Like, it doesn't change that. Anyways, good top 5. I like that.
No, that was good.
That was interesting.
The category works out better than I thought it was going to, actually. So I thought there was
for sure.
I was surprised we had so many differences. It was pretty good though. But
I am proud that we both had Over the Top in our
man. I got it on DVD. You got it on Blu-ray. That's awesome that we actually both own that movie. All right. So there can be only 5 for this week is sequels that surpassed the original. So these are movies that the sequel was better than the original. Maybe they're both classics, or maybe the second one is just by far better. I didn't really set any rules to it. There are some movies where I think the first and second ones are really close. And, and so I kind of left those off. Lord of the Rings was an example. Like, I think Two Towers is better than Fellowship, but we had this discussion last week. Like, that's their 10s though, they're all 10s. Yeah. I did the same. I got a couple on this list where the first one's a great movie and the second one is a great movie. I just feel like there is a substantial difference between the two. And that might just be my opinion, because I know a lot of people in these two instances I'm thinking about like the first movie better. So I'll go ahead and start. I didn't have any honorable mentions on this one. I had a pretty clear-cut number 5, or a clear-cut 5 that I knew I wanted to go with. So number 5, I put Top Gun Maverick as number 5 on my list.
Sequels just watched it the other day. Again.
Sequels that are better than the original. Listen, the original Top Gun, it's a cool movie, right? Like, it's 80s. It's a cool movie. Fighter jets, all that. Like, Tom Cruise is super young. He's not the megastar that he is today. And here it is. It's like 35 years later, and they make a sequel, and you're kind of like, huh?
Yeah.
And it's an amazing movie. The story is super. It's super cool. Listen, it's basically it's A New Hope in fighter jets. Like the whole plot line where they got to find like this duct. They got to shoot missiles into this air duct to blow up the base, kind of deal. The story's really cool. Basically, Goose dies in the original, and his son's like part of this group. They bring in like the best of the best fighters for the secret mission, and they have Maverick like training them, and like Goose's son's in there, and there's this animosity about that, and then this backstory like Tom Cruise didn't tell him everything. Anyway, he basically didn't want Goose's kid to get into danger and get killed too. He wanted to keep him safe, so he kind of made it so he couldn't get promoted and do these missions and things. But the story's great. The acting's great. Like, all the fighter pilots are awesome. I like the story.
Like, the effects is all real.
Yeah, it's all great. Yeah. Tom Cruise, listen, he was like in the 80s, he's this star. In the 90s, he's this star. It just seems like since this guy's turned like 50 years old, now he's like a superstar. Like, he's making these insane, great quality action movies. I think Top Gun Maverick was nominated for Best Picture at the Oscars. Rightfully so. It's a fantastic movie. It's number 5 on my list. Number 4,
Love
and
that.
this is one of the ones where I think some people, there's a lot of people out there that think the original's better, but I think the second one is by far better, and that's Aliens.
Oh yeah, saw
So
that on a couple lists.
the original Alien, Ridley Scott movie, obviously space horror, was made in the 70s. It's a classic space horror movie. It's a great movie. Alien's a great movie. So James Cameron gets brought in to make the sequel, which is Aliens, and it's a different genre. It's no longer a horror movie. It's a space marine action movie with horror elements, and it's freaking awesome.
Awesome.
Aliens is one of my favorite 80s action movies, if not my favorite. Like it's a great movie. And listen, Sigourney Weaver, I don't think gets the credit that she deserves for that franchise because she's such a badass.
Yeah.
And she did such a great job. And I know there's fall off after the first two. I, for one, thought the third one was actually a good movie. I know there was a lot of issues with it.
I like the third one too.
Yeah, and then even Alien Resurrection was okay. I mean, it was obviously it's the weakest of the four.
Third one is the prison planet one.
Yeah, and that was a David Fincher movie. Yeah,
I like Resurrection better than I like 3.
Do you?
I actually liked Resurrection.
So. I don't think any of them are bad. I thought all 4 of them were good movies. I just think 2 is it's for sure. That's an amazing movie.
Anyways, game over, man.
Yeah. Bill Paxton's the only person that's been killed by a predator, a Terminator, and an alien.
Yeah.
Yeah.
R.I.P. By the way.
R.I.P. Bill Paxton. So that's my number 4. Number 3.
And a tornado, right? Did he die? No, he didn't.
Oh, he lived. He lived in Twister. Number 3, I did have Empire Strikes Back on my list.
I knew it.
I put it at number 3. I was going to leave it off because I think it's so obvious, but at the same time,
that's exactly what I did. I left it off because we've talked about it.
At the same time, I just feel like Empire Strikes Back had to be on there because I think it surpasses. It's the greatest Star Wars movie. It surpassed the first one. It's great.
We've talked
about Empire multiple times. Yeah.
Yes. Well, I meant like we've talked about it as being like the greatest sequel ever. Like
yeah.
So we've already kind of talked about it like that. So it's not. Yeah, I agree with it being on your list.
Yeah. Number 2, and I went with The Dark Knight at number 2. I had The Dark Knight at number 2. I think Batman Begins is awesome. I think it's a great origin story for Batman. I loved that movie when it came out. I didn't think there was any way in hell they were going to make a better movie than that. And boy, did they. Like we've talked about The Dark Knight before as the movie that basically expanded the Best Picture nominee list at the Oscars because it was left off that list and it deserved to be nominated, if not win. It's got all these huge action set pieces. It's great. Like Christian Bale's a great Batman. Heath Ledger's Joker is one of the best portrayals of a villain, like acting wise. He is amazing in that role. The movie's great. It's got a great detective story around it. Like it's got a great plot and storyline. I love it. I think it's a great movie. It's definitely better than the first one. So it's one of the greatest sequels of all time. Number 1. So my movie that I think surpassed the sequel, or the sequel surpassed the original, even though this is one of the originals where the original is considered a classic. It's Terminator 2.
I knew you were going to say that.
Terminator 2. Yeah, Terminator 2 Judgment Day, I think, is the greatest sequel that's ever been made.
What a movie.
It's so amazing. The special effects are amazing. Arnold was such an iconic villain in the first Terminator, like the T-800, he's such a just stone cold killing machine, and they flip it and they make him a good guy, and that's awesome. He's great. Linda Hamilton's amazing in that movie. The action pieces are great. Robert Patrick's great as the villain. I wish his career would have been better because he does such a good job of playing. He does a great job of playing a machine, so maybe that's why. But the special effects, like it holds up. Like if you watch that movie today, it's like Jurassic Park. Like the special effects hold up for being early 90s. It's amazing. James Cameron obviously is one of the greatest writer, directors, producers there is, and he's on this list twice. And Terminator 2 Judgment Day, I think, is the best sequel.
It's a great
that's
movie. The
ever
soundtrack,
been.
the ending where he's going into the lava and he
Yeah.
slowly turns into a thumbs up. Like, what a fantastic movie.
Yeah.
I like your list. I think we had two that are similar.
Okay.
I left Star Wars Empire Strikes Back. I've got it listed as an honorable mention, but I mean, it is one of, if not the greatest sequel ever. But we've talked about it many times, and I just didn't feel like it was necessary to throw on the list. And it was part of a trilogy, part of a larger kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which I guess some of mine on here. I don't know. I felt like Star Wars and Lord of the Rings, like we've talked about them. I had moved them out of my top 5. Even
I know.
I think they are.
I feel like leaving two. I don't know. I feel like Empire. I don't know. I don't want to say like it's leaps and bounds better than A New Hope because I know it's not. But
most people,
I felt like it had to be on there. Yeah, I felt.
Yeah.
Well, I think we had this discussion last week where it was like we all know Empire's the greatest Star Wars, but I think with like Lord of the Rings, like somebody might have a different answer. You know what I mean? When you ask them what their favorite one is.
My other honorable mention was Spider-Man 2. I thought Spider-Man 2 was better than the first by a lot. But it wasn't my top 5. My top 5, I guess I should say my top 6 because my number 5 is tied for 2. Oh. I went back and forth on both of them, and I was like,
it's your list. You do what you want.
I'm gonna fucking do whatever the fuck I want. So, tied at number 5, I have Captain America: Winter Soldier. So much better than the first one. The first movie was like just kind of boring and goofy, and then Captain America: Winter Soldier came out, and I was like, I fucking love Captain America. I'm not even a Captain America fan.
I love the first Captain America. I think it's like the origin. I love that movie. I don't know why, because I know a lot of people don't, but I don't know why I do. But yeah, Winter Soldier is a better movie, no doubt.
The only reason I really like the first one because it's feels like the most classic Captain America because like Red Skull is the bad guy and in it. You obviously remember me talking about the really old Captain America movie that's super shitty. But basically the new first Captain America is like a better remake of that old original because it's the same. It's literally the same story. Anyways, I liked Captain America: Winter Soldier. I had it tied with Toy Story 2.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah.
Toy Story 2. I mean, we all love the first movie. It's great. I could never get over that Woody was like the bad. Like, I hated that this whole movie, Woody was like, all of the toys hated him. Like, he did something wrong when he didn't do, he almost did something wrong, but it wasn't his fault. So I liked that Toy Story 2 was way cooler, way more fun, way more like Woody is a badass. They went from him being like this goofy guy that everyone's mad at the whole first movie to like, he's like an idol in different countries or a super popular toy that nobody knew. So those were tied for 5. Here we go. We're diving in. My number 4, Batman Returns. Whew. What a movie.
Wow.
Batman Returns I had above. I love Batman 89, which I have been blowing you up the last week or so because I just rewatched it and I fucking love Batman 89. But nothing will ever be better than Batman Returns in that kind of Batman series and world to me. The movie, it just felt so much better. I loved that they dove even more so into like the darker, gritty, gothic vibe. Catwoman, meow. That whole movie. The Penguin was just incredible. Michael Keaton really dove into his Batman.
Tim Burton hit a freaking home run with the way he cast that movie. Michelle Pfeiffer was perfect as Catwoman. Danny DeVito was perfection as the Penguin because he made him creepy and
creepy as hell.
Danny DeVito, like, holy cow, like that, like build a statue, put him up. His portrayal of the Penguin was fantastic. Even man, he gets kind of left behind, but Christopher Walken in that movie,
dude, Yes, the whole cast, just like you said, it's perfect. I actually love the like winter Christmas setting of
Yes.
Gotham, which might also play a role in why it's like one of my favorite Batman movies, because like I'm a Christmas nerd. Like when we get to Christmas season, all this background stuff is going to be Christmased out. I love the scenery and the vibe that that movie is set in. One of my favorite Batman video games is Batman Origins, and it's set in snowy Christmas Gotham. So, anyways, Batman Returns somehow was better than the original. Did not see how that was going to happen, but it did. And honestly, that when we were doing this list, I went back and forth of like, am I doing a list of better than the original or sequels that made the original better? Like it felt, it was kind of felt like the same thing. But for my number 3, which this kind of plays a role in this, I also had Batman: The Dark Knight. I loved Batman Begins. It was an awesome origin movie. It very much, if you're a Batman comic book fan, like they did so much right about his origin with characters in that movie. They pulled a ton of stuff from Batman Year One in the Batman Begins movie. And so I didn't think they could do it, but man, it felt like The Dark Knight was just like, it was a whole nother level. Like the first movie was great, but this felt like an epic. This like when you saw this in theater, like the score in this movie, it had you like on edge. You know, anytime the Joker was in the room or in a scene, like you felt like he could stab you in the face at any moment. When he makes the pencil disappear with the magic trick, you're like, holy shit. When he snaps the pool stick and he's like, tryouts.
Yeah.
Like that was just like, this is fucking crazy.
Yep.
He makes that movie. Christian Bale is an awesome Batman, but very much they really hit the Joker Batman playing off each other vibes in that. Only kind of downfall of that movie is Rachel Dawes, like Gyllenhaal. You're
Well, I
horrible.
like her better than Katie Holmes. I don't like Katie Holmes though.
See, I like Katie Holmes. I don't like when movies do that. I don't recast what we talk about. The Mummy 3, 4, whatever.
Yeah.
Like you can't recast the person we already know. It takes you, it breaks the immersion. Anyways, The Dark Knight, fucking awesome. Way better than the original. Not that the original was bad, but way better. Right. We got better rogues galleries. Dope movie. My number 2, Terminator 2 Judgment Day. What a fucking movie. This movie, as a kid, this was like in our top 10 of rotated movies that we watched all the time. I loved it. The opening scene where they're in the post-apocalyptic timeline and they're having the war, the battle, like that 5 to 10 minute scene, like set up like hundreds of toy playing sessions with my guys. Like I'm just doing the exact same thing when I was a kid. When they announced that they were doing the Christian Bale reboot or kind of futuristic Terminator movie with him as John Connor in that post-apocalyptic war, I was so stoked because all I thought it was going to be was pretty much that first opening scene from Terminator 2. So great movie. The score and the music in that movie was incredible. Like that Guns N' Roses playing when dude's riding his dirt bike, getting chased by a freaking semi truck. He jumps into the water duct way, thinks he's getting away and turns, and this freaking semi truck kind of jumps off of the bridge. What an incredible scene. And then you got freaking badass Stallone riding his fucking Harley chasing him.
Schwarzenegger.
Like, what did I say? Stallone?
Yeah, this isn't Last Action Hero.
Sorry, you guys know what I meant. We've been talking so much about Stallone that they're all blending together. Schwarzenegger, obviously, I know Arnold is Terminator. Anyways, Arnold's fucking riding his Harley, chasing. He's got the shotgun without a shoulder butt, so he's like spinning it around to reload it. Even the opening scene where he like comes from the future into the past, and he goes into the biker bar to like take his fucking clothes.
Oh man,
when he flicks the sunglasses and Bad to the Bone starts playing, like
there
badass.
are so many awesome scenes in that movie. Like so many.
So, like him with the freaking minigun where he kicks the office building. Like how great did James Cameron do with like the setting, like all the different settings? Because let's take an office building and turn it into this badass SWAT team battle between the SWAT team and when he's freaking hitting dudes with the smoke grenades, like in the back,
and like blowing them back.
Yes, and killing people.
You know what scene? Like, and this is kind of weird, but the scene that I think is like the most emotionally charged, and I know there's the scene between like John Connor and Arnold where he's like trying to make him more human, and they talk about like, are people going to make it and stuff. The scene where Linda Hamilton goes to kill Dyson, like the guy that works at Skynet, right? The guy that designs the Terminator. When she goes to kill him,
Miles Dyson. She's gonna blow him away.
When she goes to kill him and they show up and they stop her, and that whole scene where like Arnold cuts his arm off and peels the skin off.
I was just gonna say that.
Oh man,
knifes his hand,
and like Dyson's there shot, and he's bleeding, and his wife's holding it, and they're terrified, and they see this arm, and he realizes immediately what's going on, and he's like, "Holy shit!"
I gotta stop what I
like I've got like goosebumps just talking about that scene because for some reason, like when they tell him basically he's going to end the world, like you're the one that's going to kill everybody. Yeah. And he's like, I feel like I'm going to throw up. Like that whole, like, I love it. That movie's so great.
I can hear the sound of him, like when his breath is going out and he lets go of the thing and it ka-chink, and blows up. Yeah.
I don't know how much longer I can hold on to this.
I don't know. Yeah. Just so many cool sets. The whole movie from start to finish is cool. When Arnold breaks her out of the insane asylum.
Oh, yeah.
Super dope. When they're in the mall and he's when he drops the box of roses and it's a shotgun, he starts blowing away the T-1000.
It's an amazing movie.
I just want to watch that movie now.
I do too.
So that's my
I'm just thinking
that. What a great movie. All-time classic.
Yeah.
Number one, you hate this movie. I will fucking talk about this movie any chance the door is open. I'm going to step in. I'm going to throw the ball up and I'm going to smack it over the fence. Blade Runner 2049. This movie. Get out of here. Yeah, leave. I don't care. Leave. I'll talk about this movie. You did not give this movie the time and attention that it deserved. You got bored right away. You didn't know anything about the first one, and then you didn't watch it.
Maybe I didn't know anything about the first one. I've seen like all 18 cuts of it.
This movie made the first movie so much better.
I don't disagree with that.
It took so many things from the first movie of like, is Harrison Ford a replicant? What happened with it? Was he or was he not? What happened with him and his girlfriend who was a replicant? Like, it's Ryan Gosling. This is the best movie he's ever done. This is by far his best movie as the main character. And I truly think you should go and watch this one more time where you actually pay attention.
I watched the entire movie.
Because the cinematography in this movie is insane. The score is incredible. The entire start to finish background music, the whole thing is awesome. There's a lot of there's a lot of kind of deep moments of internal thought that they do a great job of setting it with kind of the scene of without having to say the things that you're thinking. You know, he's going through thinking that he's just like, I'm a replicant. I hunt down other replicants. And then they're slowly starting to pull this thread to make him think like, are you a replicant though? Right. Or were you the first baby ever born from a replicant. Like, does that make you a machine, or does that make you like another human, or not a human,
Yeah.
but a living person? Like the whole movie, Ryan Gosling is like fighting his like internal code of what he is and what he'll ever be, and is just like constantly questioning himself, thinking that he's going to end up. They basically set it up to where he thinks for most of the movie that he is this child that's been hidden from the world, and it literally ruins, it shatters his whole world. But then he starts to realize that it's real. There's a scene in it where um basically there's people that have special abilities to create memories. Like, they basically make a movie. They can make a memory to implant in to like replicants heads, and I think humans as well. But basically, like, so you can create a memory so you can put it in a replicant, and they literally feel like that's something that actually happened. And so he goes to her and he shows her this scene of a memory of his from his childhood, to basically find out, like, this is something from my childhood. I've always, like, it's been a memory of mine that I've always had, but I know it's a fake dream. It's not real. It didn't really happen. And he goes and talks to this lady who is like a dream builder, and she watches it and tells him that it's real. And then, like, in that moment, he realizes, like, oh my God, I am the child. Like, he's sitting there, it's quiet. She's like crying. You find out later that she's crying because it's her memory, because she was the child, but they don't disclose that till the very end of the movie. But like at the moment, like, she's super upset because in the scene, the kid is he's like trying to hide this little toy horse that all his friends are trying to steal from him, and like, it's in an orphanage. He gets his ass beat. So it's like super traumatic for her because she's had that memory too. But so like she's kind of having a tear. But and when he hears that it's real, that's like basically settles in that he is the prodigal child.
Right.
And he like lets out this scream of like yelling of like, no, no, like freaking out. And it's one of the best movie scenes I've ever seen. Like, it's super powerful. It just does a great job. And then the ending of the movie, like when he realizes that he's not actually the child, he's, even though he realizes he's not the one, it's the journey has changed him fundamentally to understand that what he has been doing is not the way, and that this child is like, should be protected at all costs. And he like goes back and obviously kind of saves the day, but he just slowly goes back while it's snowing as he's dying, and just lays back in the snow on these stairs as he slowly dies. And it's such a powerful movie. I love it. My friends, I try to make all of them watch it. They all think it's hella boring, but man, it's so good. It's so good.
Listen, the original Blade Runner I saw a long time ago, and I bought it. I own it. Listen, it's this classic like 80s or late, I think it's early 80s sci-fi movie. When it came out, it wasn't viewed great, right? And over time, as people watched it, they realized it's like this science fiction
For sure.
masterpiece. Dennis Villeneuve makes a very specific kind of movie, right? He's very slow burn. He's very like, it's all very purposeful. It's very emotional. Like you said, cinematography is amazing. I go back to, I think probably his greatest movie is Arrival, and like everything he's done, and like they all have very similar tone. Even Dune has a very similar tone to Blade Runner.
Exactly. Dune and
they have very
Blade
similar
Runner
tones.
like almost the same.
I understand completely why you love this movie. Okay, I'm not. It's just I just didn't love it like you do, and I know as somebody that is really into movies like I am,
breaks my heart
when it's like when you're like, I love this movie so much, I want you to see this movie. I hope you love it. I hope you love it. And somebody says, yeah, it was okay, and you're like crushed.
That's literally what you're doing right now. It's we've already
done that. I've already said
all
that.
That was
this is years ago. Listen, I'm not going to yuck your yum, man. Like,
don't yuck my yum.
Not gonna. You like that movie? It's not a bad movie whatsoever. It's a great movie. Like you said, there's a lot of great things to it. It's just not my favorite.
Yeah, you don't have to do that. You don't have to feel like you're hurting my feelings, so you have to say the things that make me feel
No,
better.
but I know
I'm not crying. I'm just tired. It's like
no,
12
but
a.m.
I know
So
what
my
it's
eyes are
like.
red.
Like if I like when if there's something like there's like I have a list of like the movies that I like the most, like what I think are the greatest movies of all time. And if I found out that you hadn't seen one or two of them, and I'm like, you got to like this is one of my greatest favorite movies of all time, and you saw it, and I can think of a couple off the top of my head, and like you saw it, and you're like, yeah, I just didn't like it. I'd have been okay.
Yeah, like we're not
I
doing
get
a
it.
podcast about movies together anymore.
I get it. No, I love it. I like that you like that movie. That's awesome. I just
Gives me an idea for
is
like,
it better than
movies.
the original? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah. It is absolutely.
Yes.
Listen, you know what? I had an honorable mention for this list that I completely forgot, and that was Superman 2. Like,
Oh yeah, I saw that on a lot of lists too. I love.
I wanted to
Superman
put
2.
it on there, and I completely forgot that I had it as an honorable mention. But come, son of Jor-El, kneel before Zod.
It is so much better than the first one.
Yes,
The first one was not a bad movie, but
no, not at all.
Especially
For when it came out.
But
like,
the second one, fucking,
that's a
so
good movie.
cool.
Yeah.
It's a good movie.
Yeah,
I saw that on a lot of lists when we were looking at them.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, great list, man. I liked your list. You liked my list. They're great movies on. There's no bad movies on that list. Are they all better than the original? Yeah, they are. They're all better than the original.
Yeah.
There's people out there that think the first Terminator is better than T2, and I think they're nuts. But
what?
Yeah,
How
there's
is
some
that
people out
possible?
there. They're it's it was more story and character driven. Whatever, get out of town. The second one, it's one of the
one was infinitely more
it
story
might
and
be
character
the
driven.
greatest science action kind of, that and Aliens. They're both on there.
Yes. Terminator 2 is just there's so much there's so much underlying stuff with that movie that's like, fatherhood, looking for a father figure, like it can be in anyone and anything. Like there's just what a fucking cool ass movie.
Yep, absolutely. Listen, that brings us to the end of the episode. It was a little bit of a long one. We really did get into those sequels, especially. I think we talked about Judge Dredd more than we usually talk about movies too.
Because it's a good fucking movie.
That's not why, but we had a lot to talk about. So good episode though. I really enjoyed it. If you're watching us on YouTube, give us a like and subscribe. Leave us a comment. If you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, or Podcast Index, please make sure you give us a subscribe. We would appreciate that. And you can find us at Movie Dads Pod on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. That brings us to the end of the episode. We'll be back next week for episode number 9, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. We already have our tickets. Tickets purchased.
Good.
We're ready to go. And I think we haven't decided what we're going to do post that one yet. I think we had talked about maybe doing Batman 89 and Batman Returns as like a 2.
Yeah, we're definitely going to do that.
I think that's what we're going to do. And then the following week, we're going to do The Flash. So that'll be a lot of fun.
I'm excited for the new Spider-Man. They finally dropped a trailer that's way more story driven than the others that they've dropped. And it actually doesn't feel just like, oh, we're just in a different Spider-Verse running around. Like there's actual story behind it. And I can already tell. What were you going to say?
Early reviews are pretty good too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I know you hated the first one, but
I didn't.
I actually thought it was one of the best Marvel movies ever.
Just because I didn't think something was the greatest ever doesn't mean I hate it.
If you weren't the Avengers, freaking, I'm not even going to go into it, but it looks good. The trailer makes it look super. I can already tell I'm going to probably cry. I just got the vibe like there's going to be some sad stuff that happens potentially. There's going to be a lot of like father-son moments that are going to be pretty powerful based on the last trailer. So I'm excited for it.
Yeah. So we'll be back next week with Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Everybody, have a great Memorial Day, and we will see you next week.
Bye.